This COVID thing is getting a lot of people to call their exes. And if you're not calling them, you might be thinking about them. You might be wondering what this situation would be like with someone else, because being trapped in the house with someone for 2.5 months can be very challenging. It's going to bring up a lot of stuff. You're going to feel claustrophobic, and your mind's going to drift, right? And I just feel like with what's going on, it's going to really require us to examine our relationship. So if you are in a relationship, you definitely have a high-powered black light going across your relationship, and the things that bothered you, the things that bother you, annoy you about what your partner does is going to be amplified. And then if you are not in a relationship, if you are single, there's a blanket of loneliness. There's going to be, whenever we go through something where we feel uncertain, whenever we go through something where we are ill, or where, we feel alone in the world, one of the things we do is we start thinking about, are we going to be alone forever, right? That's where we go. We think about, it makes us feel more alone. It's like being in the hospital and no one comes to visit, right? That feeling comes up. And so because of that, and on top of that, social media being a direct conduit into people's lives, including everyone from our past, we are now DMing, or our exes are DMing us, or we're texting. And so here are 3 tips to stop that shit. Here are 3 tips before you make a decision that you may regret. Okay, 1 is you got to remind yourself why it didn't work out. I think so many of us, when it comes to our exes, we're playing back the highlight reel. We're playing back the movie trailer. When you look back at a relationship, rarely do we play back all the things that went wrong. We usually just kind of default to, the magical kiss when you first met, or, whatever it is, the points of the relationship that worked, or, the early imprints of the connection where you got a lot of dopamine. And because you're playing that back, you're going from reality to fantasy, and you're forgetting why it didn't work out. And maybe why it didn't work out many times, okay? So you got to remind yourself why it didn't work out. And I always tell my clients, if 2 people have not changed, like secondary change, like change that's irreversible, right? I'm not talking about they look better or they now have a job or abs or whatever. I'm talking about change where they are different from the inside out, that their behavior, the way they see the world, the way they maneuver through life, their energy, all of that has to be different for the dynamic of the relationship to be different. If not, you're just, the chances of that relationship dynamic snapping back into what it was, which didn't work, is going to be very high, right? And time alone isn't enough. So just because it's been 3 years, or it's been, a long time, doesn't mean that now a second chance, or round 2 or round 4 or whatever, is going to be healthy, right? So number 2, sit with your feelings. It's not about rejecting how you feel. If you are feeling lonely and a lot of isolation, and you're feeling maybe you're feeling horny, I don't know, all the things where you're like wondering and curious about who you used to love, and where they're at or how they are, that's okay. That just means that you're human. So what's important is that you sit with it instead of reacting. A lot of people will feel lonely, or feel a longing for someone, or someone will reach out, and whether it's email, text, or DM, and that will bring up an emotion. And instead of sitting with it, they will instantly do something. Like they will say something back, or they will pick up the phone, or answer a FaceTime. And that is the beginning, right? Now we are in fantasy. Now we are in what ifs, and this is going to possibly lead you down a path of more heartbreak and pain. So sit with whatever comes up and sort it out. You know, it's okay to feel what you feel, but it's not okay to do things that you may regret, right? It's not okay to throw away years of work. If you drew boundaries or you've built yourself a safe space, to go back to something that may have been toxic or unhealthy. So sit with your feelings. Write them down. You know, I think that's really journal. Write them down, or actually, the best would be the process with a therapist or a coach. So you're getting them out of you, and you're sorting out your feelings instead of just feeling and reacting from your feelings. Okay, and the last one, my last tip, number 3, is ask yourself where it's coming from. So your desire, your urge to, your craving to contact an ex. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from truth? Is it coming from, something that actually makes sense? Or is it coming from a place of loneliness, desperation, sexual frustration? Like, where is it coming from? And I think if you follow that thread, and it may take a while, then you will understand where it's coming. And once you understand where it's coming from, then you'll realize, oh, this is what's happening, right? It creates distance. And this is really powerful because a lot of times when we feel something and we get emotional, there is no distance, right? That it's like right here, and then it sucks us under, and then we don't realize where it's coming from, and we just kind of go with it, and suddenly we are moving in with someone, or we are, in bed with someone, or we are starting something, and we realize, oh shit, we're going down the same road, right? And then we put on our brakes and all that. So 3 tips: remind yourself why it didn't work. Maybe even write it down, make a list. Sit with your feelings instead of reacting. Actually sit with your feelings, breathe, sort things out, and then finally, where's it coming from? Why do you feel this way? What's at the core of these feelings? And if this doesn't work, then repeat, repeat the process. And I think the more that you repeat it, the more you'll come to your truth. And you know what? If your truth is like, I want to give this another try, that's fair. But do these steps, and I think by doing these steps, maybe a few times, you will have you'll make a smarter decision. It'll be like putting your decision through a strainer and actually really figuring out if this is a smart choice, instead of just reacting and then realizing that it wasn't something that you should have done. All right, be safe, and talk to you soon.